I would wake up in the middle of the night screaming, crying in pain.
In 2002, Tim Fagan was 16 years old when he underwent a successful life-saving liver transplant. But something was wrong. Tim was having severe spasms, and nobody knew why.
It was extremely upsetting to see Tim in such pain, and we were totally helpless. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know who to go to.
Tim suffered for weeks, but only on the nights he was injected with Epigen, a drug designed to increase his depleted red blood cells.
It was traumatic enough to be giving these shots, but now to be giving these shots and knowing that he would have a reaction was just horrible.
And then Jeannie Fagan got a call from their pharmacy, CVS, that the Epigen could be counterfeit.
This is the United States of America, and I thought that our drug system was safe and secure. Lo and behold, Tim's exposed to counterfeits.
The only way to tell was by scrutinizing the label.
This is the counterfeit vial, and this is the actual vial. Now, there's the only difference right up here. Counterfeit, real vial.
Holy cow. See the tiny degree symbol? It's missing from the counterfeit. Kevin called the pharmacy, the distributor, even the manufacturer. No one would explain what happened.
I was absolutely frantic as to what this counterfeit medication might have done to my son in the short term and in the long term.
As the Fagans searched for answers, medical journalist Catherine Eman began investigating counterfeit drugs. What do you mean by counterfeit drugs?
Counterfeit medicine means that what is in the bottle or in the pill is not what it says on the label.
So how does this happen?
Medicine moves through a complex distribution system where it is handled by many middlemen. And during that journey that our drugs take, often they are mishandled, they are stolen from warehouses, they are recycled and bought for cash from Medicaid patients, and they can also be counterfeit and deadly.
Why don't our drugs go straight from the manufacturer to the pharmacy?
So what they would rather do is unload all their drugs to a big distributor and have them deal with the logistics of reselling it.
Even learned there are 3 large wholesale companies in the U.S. that handle 90% of our drugs. They purchase primarily from manufacturers, but they also buy from smaller wholesalers.
Then it is moved like a chess piece through this maze of distributors and wholesalers, and that maze is very poorly regulated. It's simply watched over by a patchwork of state laws with minimal federal regulation.
Eban's investigation led her to Florida, where she discovered there were nearly 500 licensed wholesalers in the state. Just about anybody could get a license. This opens the door for counterfeiters.
A number of former narcotics traffickers got state licenses to distribute pharmaceuticals. All they needed was a total of $900, a small refrigerator and some air conditioning and a lock on their door, and they were in business.
Nobody knows that better than a team of investigators in Florida, pulled together from 3 different agencies by former prosecutor Stephanie Feldman.
And I called them Operation Stone Cold because the people that we were after were stone cold killers. If you give a cancer patient hemophiliac strength drugs, you're a killer.
And that happens?
That happens. It happens all the time.
Operation Stone Cold uncovered a trail of counterfeit drugs, including Tim Fagan's Epigen. According to investigators, Tim's Epigen began as a much lower dosage, which would typically cost wholesalers about $260 a box. The original labels were washed off the vials of medicine and replaced with another label, made to look nearly identical to the label of a much higher dosage, which would cost $4,700 a box. The process is called uplabeling. So they were uplabeling right here in this trailer park?
Right here, yes, right behind you.
Cesar Arias, a pharmacist and inspector for the state's Department of Health, was one of the investigators of Operation Stone Cold who tracked the Epigen.
Well, they traveled through strip clubs, they traveled through homes, they traveled in the trunks of cars without proper cooling.
And eventually, according to Eban's investigation, the Epigen was sold back to one of the original distributors, AmerisourceBergen, who sold it to CVS. In the end, 110,000 vials of Epigen and Procrit were relabeled, with a net profit to the counterfeiter of $46 million. Why is our medicine not better looked after?
In 1988, a federal law was passed that would have solved that problem and required an audit trail for every drug that moved through the system. Lobbyists for the wholesalers came in and gutted that legislation. As a result, the federal government cannot tell you where your medicine has been, who has handled it, or what is in it.
the Fagans are suing both CVS and AmerisourceBergen. CVS declined a request for an interview and issued the following statement. After receiving an alert from the manufacturer, our pharmacist quickly alerted the Fagan family about the counterfeit medication. CVS has filed legal action against AmerisourceBergen and says it's taken steps to ensure its suppliers get medication only from reputable sources. AmerisourceBergen also sent a statement to CBS News. AmerisourceBergen is deeply concerned about the reckless activities of drug counterfeiters. As a result of greatly enhanced tracking, monitoring, and security controls since the period covered in Miss Eben's book, we have had no incidents of counterfeit drugs in our distribution centers. It's not enough for the Fagans. They hope new legislation will fill the gaps that now exist in the system.
You can't do this to people and get away with it. Someone has to be held accountable.
For Tim, the experience has been devastating.
You know, I'm frightened every morning and every night now that I take a pill or a shot or whatever it is, because I'm not sure whether it's counterfeit or not.
50 people have been arrested so far as the result of the Florida investigation. Florida is one of 3 states that have tightened their pharmaceutical laws.